Please enjoy this feature presentation of the Crooked River Radio Network. This program is rated for all audiences.
The Nanosecond podcast is sponsored by CrookedRiverRadio.com. Crooked River Radio is an internet radio station that is live 24/7 playing rock and adult contemporary top 40 hits from the 60s through the 90s. You can find us on Live 365, Simple Radio, Roku, Radio Garden, and even Alexa, as well as our website. Come on and join us on the Crooked River.
Welcome to the Nanosecond podcast. With your hosts, Eric Nanarone, Nick Goglioni, and Pat Morrow. Interesting topics, intriguing conversation, and entertainment. Eric, Nick, and Pat will be right with you.
Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Eric.
I am Nick.
And I think I'm Pat. I haven't checked lately, but I think so. And we got a guest. You want to tell him who it is?
Our guest tonight is known as Packer fan Dan Menningen. How you doing, Dan?
I'm well, gentlemen. I'm well. I like the rebrand. Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Eric and I's concoctions.
Yep.
I do pretty well with the audio side of this stuff, and I've actually had classes in video or the graphics design and stuff like that, so we do okay. The thing you see behind him was actually his idea, but I couldn't get it to get into Photoshop, so I ended up doing one similar to it in Photoshop, and that's how it turned out. It looks pretty good.
It looks good. I am the worst at that stuff, so I can't say anything, especially when it comes to Photoshop and any kind of editing and that stuff. I've learned to stick with audio and then find people who are better than me at things and pay them in beer.
Ooh, that's a good payment.
You just cut out the middleman.
Okay, well, we'll just go with the introduction there. And what do you think of the Aaron Rodgers thing?
Where do you want me to start? Do we want to start with the Darkness Retreat? Like, where do we want to go back to Cal? I mean, the Aaron Rodgers saga is one of just the most unbelievable things that you could possibly imagine of a quarterback in the NFL. And it all comes back to the very simple thought that he is, to me, one man's opinion, with probably a lot of bias in there, though I try to check it at the door as much as I can, the greatest quarterback I've ever watched play football. And he could make he could make every throw on the planet. He could run. He was actually more mobile than people realized. He was immensely talented the entire time. And the part that always did me in with it and was the funkiness and the weirdness that would kind of come with him. But the whole thing with it was you tolerated it and you were fine with it. And you kind of made it work, and Packers fans learned to just kind of like, okay, we're just going to ignore him. He's going to go on Pat McAfee and talk about Bigfoot and all sorts of, bizarro stuff that was going to come up on that show of alien invasions. And then he was going to come out with 9/11 conspiracy theories and then the vaccinations. And you put up with it. And the reason you put up with all of it was because the guy was the best quarterback in football, and he's got back-to-back MVPs to prove it. And what happened within the last year is that he's no longer the second best quarterback in football. He's actually almost fallen out of the top 10 with what you saw, especially at the end of last year. And all of a sudden, that very simple balancing scale that takes place of like, okay, I will tolerate this much because I know your play is here. Well, now that started to slide down. And the Packers are set on Jordan Love, and they want to see what he can do. And they want to see if he is the future quarterback and the next guy who can take over the Rodgers, the the handoff from Favre to Rodgers and Rodgers to Love. I mean, for 30 years, the Packers have had consistent quarterback play, and this is the first time since the ball went from Favre to Rodgers that this became question mark. And so I don't blame the Packers in the slightest for the spot that they're in. They did it to themselves. I mean, that's the part of this that makes me laugh for the end of it, is they did it to themselves. They handed him contract. They guaranteed him $36 million, or no, $31 million. They guaranteed him that money. So it's their fault. And it's so funny to me that they're in this position where they're like, well, you know, what do we do with Rodgers? Well, he wants to go to the Jets. We want to trade him to the Jets. The Jets think they have leverage. It's just hysterical, because what's going to happen is he's going to go to the Jets. He's going to have one really good year, and it's going to be an ultimate middle finger to Green Bay year. And if the Jets listen to him, they're going to bring in all of his buddies. They're going to bring in Randall Cobb, and they're going to bring in Alan Lazard, and they're going to bring in whomever else is still in the league that he thinks deserves another gig. They're going to tank their payroll, and he's going to continue to decline. And that's where we are. And this is the same thing that happened to Favre. Favre had 1 year in him that was the ultimate middle finger to the Packers of, you shouldn't have got rid of me. I'm angry. I can make this work. I'm still great. And then it fell apart. And I think Rodgers, the same thing is going to happen. And so I think right now the Packers are sitting back and going, okay, give us this year's one, maybe a 2 in the future. And the Jets are going, no, you're over the barrel. And the Packers are like, no, we have a quarterback. We know who starts week 1. His name is Jordan Love. Come hell or high water, Jordan Love is starting week 1. And this is where we sit. And I think it'll go to the draft. I bet you draft, and we finally see the trade get made.
With you being representing the Packers fan base, basically Aaron Rodgers drove out Devontae Adams last season, and now he's leaving himself. How's your fan base been handling that? That arguably the best receiver quarterback duo in the league just 2 years back, is now both those guys gone. How's your fan base handling all that?
So it's kind of the same thing you would expect, which is part of the fan base has been wanting to drive Aaron Rodgers to the airport for years. Probably since the whole immunized thing is what kind of set everybody off when it came to Rodgers. Mm-hmm. And so that's where it started. I don't know. The whole Adams thing was a bummer, but when you're a Packers fan, you just, and this is going to sound so bad, it's almost cultish, and you almost just trust the system, and you just learn to trust the system where it's like, okay, they've got somebody up their sleeve. They know what they're doing. You went from Antonio Freeman way back into the day to Javon Walker for a cup of coffee until he needed to get paid, to Robert Ferguson was in there for a while. Then comes Jordy Nelson. Then comes Randall Cobb. Here comes James Jones. Like, you just learn, like, okay, these guys know how to draft receivers. They know what they're doing. They're just not going to do it in the first round. It's why it always made me laugh when these mock drafts would come out all the time. Like, that Packers taking this guy in the first round. It's like, no, they're not. They're not taking a first-round wide receiver. Just stop it now. They will take an off-ball linebacker, and then they'll take a center, and we'll all be pissed, and those guys will end up being fine, but we're still going to be pissed because he's not named Justin Jefferson.
Yeah,
That's just going to be the situation, and you've accepted it.
I hate to say this, but, you're not the only team that's doing this. I mean, look at Tampa Bay now with what they just acquired. And the first thing Mayfield says when he gets there is, I'm not going to be any Tom Brady. You're getting the same situation there, though. You're going to get Baker Mayfield down there, and he's going to have one good year if he's lucky. And he's going to, it's the same crushing crap that's going on with Green Bay. It's hard to believe that there's so much of this goes on in the league, and unless you're watching for it, you just don't see it.
The Tampa Bay situation, it seems a little bit different than what's going on in Green Bay. The reason being, and again, I'm trying not to be a homer. I'm trying to check that at the door and look at this analytically and try to be smart and all of that kind of stuff. Jordan Love has been there. He's been behind Rodgers. He's been working inside of the system for 3 years now. This is year 4. Bake's walking in the door. They've got a brand new offensive coordinator down there. He's never thrown to anybody who is on that roster right now. And so we kind of don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know how it's going to fit with Baker. Now, if I'm him and I'm Baker Mayfield, the solution is really simple. That guy, Mike Evans, turned Johnny Manziel into a first-round draft pick. Throw it to him. Like, that guy, Chris Godwin, is one of the best slot receivers in all of football. Throw it to him. And I know if you look at Baker Mayfield throw charts, you know, it's not over the middle. It's a lot of deep shots. It's a lot of stuff off to the sides. You don't see it over the middle until it's about 10 yards down the field and all that stuff. If I'm Jordan Love, I'm running the hell out of the football. I'm handing it to A.J. Dillon. I'm handing it to Aaron Jones. And I'm setting up play action off of that. And I'm giving myself the easiest throws that I can until I can get in rhythm. When he came in that game against Philly, now granted, Philly was in prevent defense. It looked good. He knew what he was doing. He knew where the ball was going. He had chemistry. Is this year going to be great in Green Bay? No, they're probably not making the playoffs. They're probably not making the Super Bowl. This is what happens when you decide to move on from a 39-year-old quarterback who you have hitched your franchise to for the last 15 years. There's probably going to be a transition period. There was a transition period that took place when Rodgers took over from Favre. Even the great ones, it still takes a little bit of time. So I don't know. If you hear people inside of Green Bay, like I know Leroy Butler is one of them, who has come out and said, in an open competition, Jordan Love would beat Aaron Rodgers. And I went, all right, let's stop. Let's pump the brakes a little bit, Hall of Famer. I get that. And I love Leroy Butler. He's been awesome for the Packers and the media and all that stuff. But I thought that might have been a bridge too far. And I know there is a step of the Packer Nation that also thinks that same exact way, which is like open competition. Love it, or hold on, I should do this correctly. You'll put them in an open competition, and I swears to you, that Jordan Love guy, oh my gosh, he take down Aaron Rodgers in a second.
Marvelous.
We need to cut that,
impression.
Pat.
Marvelous impression.
We need to cut that.
It's like my whole family's from there or something.
But I mean, the one thing with the Packers is they're a publicly owned team too, so
Right.
that's maybe not
Good
a
point,
good
man.
thing because they are actually run by fans, and that's not always a good thing.
So the fans, it's more ceremonial than anything when it comes to the fan ownership. Like
Okay.
there's an owners meeting every year in Lambeau Field, and everybody packs into there and they give the status report and all of that kind of stuff. In reality, it's a board of trustees that runs the Green Bay Packers. And while that is a good thing in some regards because they're like let's use Tom Brady again. Okay. The New England Patriots for years, Robert Kraft, sorry, I don't know where Eric Kraft came from. Robert Kraft would come down from above and he would go, "You're not trading Tom Brady. He's a New England Patriot for life. Bill Belichick, you will do everything you can to keep Tom Brady. I look at him like he is my son." There isn't that with the Packers. It's not there. There's nobody who the quarterback can go up to and say, "Okay, I want to stay." They're playing hardball with me. The team president's playing hardball. General manager's playing hardball. All that stuff is gone. There's one person you're reporting to, and his name's Mark Murphy, and he's the president of football operations. Brian Gutekunst works under him. And so you're going to Mark Murphy. Well, Murphy hired Gutekunst. These guys think the same way. They all were under Ted Thompson. And so you going to him and trying to schmooze him isn't going to get you anywhere. So it's good. And I quote, it was Michael Lewis's book, and I think it was The Undoing Project. He said it in. And he was talking to Daryl Morey. And he said, the best part, I like having the owner in the room with me because the owner is the biggest fan of the team that's there. The owner shakes the pom-poms more than anybody else. Why? It's his money. It's his investment. He's the one that's truly putting up the cash that we all want to willingly throw around to every free agent we think can be good. The biggest fan on the planet. When it comes to the Green Bay Packers, that guy isn't there. And while that is really nice, because when someone's over the hill, they go, hey, he's over the hill. You can't go up and talk to somebody else. It sucks because they get themselves in these positions where guys who have had a long tenure with the team leave, and they're infuriated with how they were treated on the way out. And Favre was infuriated. Wouldn't step foot in Lambeau for years. Rodgers, now you're seeing it come out. Oh, I don't like this. They did this. I hate how they treated Clay Matthews. I hate how they treated A.J. Hawk. I hate how they go down the line from there. That's the stuff where having an owner is really nice. That's where it really shows off.
He mostly said in the interview that with McAfee, everybody he likes is gone.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't like Gutekunst, Murphy, or anybody else running the show.
Right. And you think of how any other team is run in the league. The owner is there for the whole thing. And the players who are really good learn a relationship with the owner. And if there is no owner to build a relationship with, who do I talk to? Who's the guy? It's Mark Murphy. Well, Mark Murphy is a part of a board of trustees, and he's running the team as the president. I think he's president of football operations or some stuff like that. So he's looking at it as analytically possible too. It's such a funky setup in Green Bay that it really benefits them sometimes, but it shoots them in the foot at other times. Like Zadarius Smith had a whole bunch of, he lit the world on fire when he left Green Bay. A lot of his complaints were pretty darn good. Like he was pretty much onto something. You had an owner, those complaints might be looked at. You don't. And Mark Murphy's winning. So the board's not going to do anything. And the fans that fill up the stadium or anything like that aren't going to do anything. So no, if a decision is made in Green Bay, it's not like if you're an owner, you get a ballot in the mail and you hit a punch card or you sign on to something like that. Like it doesn't work like that if you're an owner. It's more ceremonial than anything else. Like you're basically just making a donation is kind of the best way to put it for $250 to say I am a shareholder of the Green Bay Packers. So that's a very, very long way to answer your question. And I apologize for my incoherent rambling.
No, that's fine. Did you want to say something, Nick?
I was gonna ask, do you think Jordan Love is that dude? I mean, it's very hard to go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, and now it looks like it's gonna be Jordan Love's time. Is he that dude that's gonna lead them the next decade or so, or do you think eventually in a few years they'll look elsewhere?
I don't know. And that's the part of it that's like the shakiest, is I flat out don't know. Now, I will say I was wrong on Aaron Rodgers. I remember when I first saw him play, I'm like, this guy can't do it. Horrible. I said the same thing about Jordan Love when I saw him play as well. So I was like, this guy can't do it. He's horrible. I'm like, I'm bracing myself because, like, let's be honest, gentlemen, we're due. Like, we're due to stink. This has been such a run of success my entire life that, like, we're kind of just due. We're due to tear this down. We're due to swing and miss at a quarterback and have to kind of walk the wilderness for a little while until you find somebody else to step in. I want him to be that guy. He's got the arm strength to do it. Everything you hear out of camp is like, this guy's figured it out in the last year and change, and he's really made a leap. He's already doing the quarterback camp in LA where he's got Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs and that whole group deciding to roll on in. I want him to be. I'm bracing myself that it's no, because my initial thought was no. And maybe it's like the reverse jinx of it all.
Okay. Let's switch it up a little bit to Little World Baseball Classic, because the championship is actually going on, I think, as we speak.
Correct. Right now. I'm on lockdown, gentlemen, so don't tell me what's going on.
Okay. Yeah. Um, you actually went to a game or two? Uh,
Yes. So yeah, I was in Arizona a week ago. The U.S. pool, it was U.S., Mexico, Canada, and Colombia were all in the same pool playing in Arizona. And so I was able to go to the U.S. Colombia game.
what was the atmosphere like? Was it different than what it would be like going to a Guardians game?
Yes. So it was much louder. Um, it it was, and I think some of that has to do with the fact that Chase Field is a dome and they had the roof closed, and so all of that stuff just echoes a little bit more. It was loud in there. It was passionate in there. It's kind of cool. Like there's something about going to a US game, where it's, either if you've ever done like the women's national team or soccer or gone to see the men's soccer team or anything like that, like you kind of get that pride going and you get that little bit of the patriotism that kicks in and all that stuff. And it just makes for a different atmosphere than you would anywhere else. I know Guardians playoff game, especially I was in the building for the walk off, the Oscar Gonzalez walk off, and what was that, the 17th or whatever the hell it was, like that got really really loud. And the U.S. game was probably about there, except it was about there from the beginning and kind of just maintained. And especially if you've seen, and I mean, it spikes and goes down and all that kind of stuff. I should say like that, but there is a definite buzz in the air. There's something about being in a building, guys, where everyone is rooting for the same thing, and there is nobody there who is rooting against it. And I think that's what really stands out to it. And plus, the guys are having so much fun.
Do you think that they could, because it does kind of run into spring training a little bit, do you think they could boot it or up maybe a month? Maybe play it in January or early February so these guys could actually uh, do spring training with their major league teams?
So here's what was brought up. Here's the problem with that, because I thought something similar. And Jeff brought this up, and it was actually a really good point. Jeff Phelps, that is. And he goes, let's lay this all out. Okay. If you tried to play this in January, this is how it would go. Spring training starts in February the year before, right? You go into March a little bit for spring training, play the regular season. At the end of the season, a bunch of guys end up taking time off. They get surgery. They take care of what they need to do in their rest. They would have to, inside of that off season, come in and play, and then go in and start free agency, or I should say, and start spring training. Now, that's what soccer does with the World Cup most of the time. Qatar being the one example that we have going a different direction. I I think that's the way that they almost should do it, is they should try to bump it back. But I actually like it right now, guys. And I know that sounds crazy because everybody wants to be in spring training and everybody, is so careful about their guys. And the Edwin Diaz injury scares everybody, and the Jose Altuve injury scares everybody. And I get that. And it makes total sense. Those are going to happen anyway. Those kind of things are going to come up at some point anyway, where someone's going to get injured and someone's going to get hit in the hand with a baseball. And, the Edwin Diaz injury and all that stuff. I think if you moved it into where you're talking, it could work. I just think you wouldn't end up with the biggest names, especially the guys who are needing surgery after they're done and getting their arms warmed up and, all of that kind of stuff. I wonder, the other part that I wonder too is, for us in the United States, this is a slammed part of the calendar. For the rest of the world, that's not as much the case. And so if you are going to do the World Baseball Classic, the world's baseball tournament, you should do it at a time that best fits the world, not a time that best fits the United States. And I wonder if that's how they are looking at this as well. Is, okay, early February, before the KBO season starts, before the MPB season starts over in Japan. Let's do it then. And I wonder if that plays into it. Because if you did it in January, you'd either have to find all these domes to do it in, or you'd have to do it in the Southern Hemisphere. And domes are easy to come across, so it wouldn't be the end of the world, but it would be a little shakier than where we are right now. Plus travel would be a bear.
For those of you just joining us, thank you. We are talking to Dan Menningen from 92.3 The Fan. Let's change gears just a little bit. Let's talk Browns free agency. What do you think about what they've done?
I love it. It's what they have. That's what they needed to do. We all walked into the offseason and said, defensive tackle, defensive end, defensive tackle, defensive end. Go find a safety. Defensive tackle, defensive end. Hey, it'd be nice if you had a wide receiver that could take the top off. But don't forget defensive tackle and defensive end. Like we all said that. We said that from July of last year. Defensive tackle, defensive tackle, defensive tackle. All year they got ran all over. They walked out in free agency and they signed 3 defensive tackles.
And don't forget to fire your coaches. And don't forget to fire the defensive coach and the special teams coach, which, man, I am really impressed with what they did there. This team seems like it's actually got a half a chance this year as far as defense. When you bring in Bubba Ventrone, who had the second or third, he had the second or third defense in the whole or the special teams in the whole league. You're really doing something, man. I'm really impressed. And today when they brought in, was it Tristan Hill? The stuff that you're bringing in here is it's gotta help. It sure as hell can't hurt much.
They decided to make an investment on the special teams and in the defense. And the Browns have led, and it should look to see if this is still the case. I don't think it is anymore. The Browns are the number 1 team in offensive spending in all of NFL. And so they would always take all of their cap space and go, let's get the quarterback, let's supplement the quarterback, let's get a defensive line, or I should say offensive line, and we'll piecemeal the defense together and we'll make it work. That was always the thought process that Andrew Berry had. What we have seen thus far in free agency is a changing of that thought process, that the defense that we saw last year was not good enough. And it wasn't just a Joe Woods thing. It was a personnel thing on top of it. It was the guys who are here are not good enough. We need to get pressure on the quarterback because no matter how much money you spend in the secondary, no matter which safeties and corners and whatever else you put back there, if you cannot pressure the quarterback will complete passes. It just will. That's how the game is set up. I mean, this sounds so stupid, but like the receivers know where to run. The corners do not. The way that this works is if you can't get pressure on the quarterback, he'll sit back there all day and wait for his receivers to know where to run.
Of all the receiver options for the Browns, I know we looked at like Jerry Jeudy. There's some other guys. Who do you think's the favorite to land in Cleveland for the wide receivers right now?
The Marquise Goodwin, him being in town and that stuff and checking out the facilities, I think is interesting because he is a burner. He's exactly what they need in that regard. I wonder what they want to spend. Like, I know you hear the DJ Shark thing all the time. Of DJ Shark, great long distance or deep threat, can run some routes, all of that kind of stuff. DeAndre Hopkins, of course, that won't go away. I think it's somebody like Marquise Goodwin, where they're going to go into next season and they're going to say, all right, David Bell, what do you got? Let's go. It's time to figure out if you can play. Donovan Peoples-Jones, you're legit, but you still need to take another step forward. Like you are an NFL wide receiver. You are probably 3 right now. You need to take a step forward. We need to figure out if you are a 2. And Amari Cooper, with the idea on top of that being that they believe Deshaun Watson is a franchise quarterback. And if he is a franchise top 10 in the league quarterback, the way that they are paying him, then it becomes so simple because that guy becomes the ultimate force multiplier. And by that, I mean, if you have an elite quarterback, he makes everybody around you better. He makes your offensive line look better. He makes your wide receivers look better. That's what having a great quarterback is. That guy will put the ball on time and on target, and you can bring in a guy who is average, and he will look above average, and above average will look like a superstar. Why? Because that's what a franchise quarterback does.
That's what Tom Brady did for you.
Exactly. If you need proof, there's Tom Brady. If you need more proof, there's Patrick Mahomes, who just won the Super Bowl, throwing to Juju Smith-Schuster, Cole Hartman, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, down the line from there, with the elite one being Travis Kelce, who can catch anything for him, and the two of them have a Vulcan mind meld that they just know where the other one is going to be at all times. And like, we could go around the league to the elite NFL quarterbacks, and the same thing will remain true, which is if you have that guy and you are paying that guy, then everything around him looks so much better that you can get away with a few things. That's what having an elite quarterback is. And so I wonder, to your question about which receiver fits best, I wonder if it's a guy like Marquise Goodwin. And it's just the simple reason of like, okay, you're Anthony Schwartz, except you can catch. So go fast and take the top off the defense. And I'm going to rely on the guy that I'm paying $250 million guaranteed to set this whole thing up and to make this all look better than it is and to clean up the mistakes that may come in between, because that's what franchise quarterbacks do. So I would love to give you a name, and I would love to be able to point and say, it's this guy, go to Vegas, put the money down, and you'll be set. I don't have it. And I think what it's going to come back to is they're going to make an investment in a burner, and what happens from there happens from there, and they hope some guys take some steps forward. And I know that's what nobody wants to hear at all. Every Browns fan is like, no, go get DeAndre Hopkins. Just here's the farm. Go get DeAndre Hopkins. Here's the second. Here's the third. Go get DeAndre Hopkins. Why? Because he's DeAndre Hopkins, and he makes me better right now. And it's like, yes, you are right. He does make you better right now. The question is it worth it to give up a guy who can be a cheap piece for the future to go get DeAndre Hopkins, who is an expensive piece for the right now? Do you want to figure out how to build it and have it be sustainable? Or do you want to be the Rams, where you just basically middle finger them picks, get everybody who's talented in here, win your Super Bowl, have a hell of a parade, take a little bit of a put, and then have the worst Super Bowl hangover we've seen in a very long time and tear it down? Because it worked. And for the next 3 years, the Rams are going to, if Rams fans complain, all 20 of them, if they complain, they will point to the Raptors in SoFi and go, did you like that parade? Did you like the banner? Isn't it nice? Because this is it. The credit card is due. It's the same thing that happened with the Cavaliers, right? You got the title, you made the multiple finals appearances, all of a sudden LeBron leaves and the credit card is due. And it's like, oh no, we're in the luxury tax for a lot of guys who are not good. We're paying Tristan Thompson $20 million a year. Oh crap, what happened? Like, that's it. And that's the balance that Andrew Berry is having right now. Is yes, we can point to the second and third round picks that he's made and go, well, he'll just screw them up anyway. He screwed up the rest of them. The thing with second and third round picks is those are cheap, talented starters that are sitting out there for you to get if you pick the right ones that are there. And you can't pay everyone in the NFL. I know the Saints will tell you differently. I know they have wizards that work their cap. They have people that make everything we would all love as our accountants because we would walk out during tax time with an insane return. But at some point, the credit card is due. And I think that's where the Marquise Goodwin signing comes in. It's like, okay, this guy will give us what we want. It's not the best at it. He's also not the worst at it. But we want this thing to be sustainable. And there's another shiny object that's probably out there that would be shinier and would get my fan base more excited. And his name's DeAndre Hopkins, but I also have to pay him $10 million for the next 2 years. And I don't know if he's going to be willing to renegotiate that. Or it's non-guaranteed, so you could cut him, but if you cut him, you just burnt your second-round pick for a guy you cut.
But the Browns seem to use our friend analytics a lot, and analytics would show that somebody 30 or older doesn't fit.
Damn, this sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Why does this sound familiar?
Wonder who would have said that, Dan?
We all want to live, and this is going to be deep, and I don't mean it to, but it's going to help to explain some stuff. We all want to live in a black and white world where everything is good, everything is bad, and it's that simple. And it's so easy to know where to go with all of this stuff. And I think the Browns are one of those teams that want to live in a black and white world, but we all know that the truth of the matter is that everything is gray. And it's differing levels of gray. That is life. And that's what makes life fun, by the way, is that there are so many differing levels of gray that exist in all of it. And this whole over 30 thing is gray. I think if you were to come to the Browns and go, all right, Fletcher Cox, I'll give you Fletcher Cox on a 1-year deal. I'll give you Fletcher Cox on a 2-year deal. The Browns would pounce all over that. He's Fletcher freaking Cox. It doesn't matter how old he is. He's awesome. Yes, he was in a limited role last year with the Eagles where they rested him in between. He also was one of the best pass rushers in football last year and one of those feared guys on the planet. I think the same thing exists with Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner is older. He's 32. I think if you went to the Browns and said, all right, 1 year, $6 million, would you take Bobby Wagner? I think they'd say yes. But the problem that exists in there is that those aren't the deals that are being handed out. The ones that analytics tell you to avoid, and it's not even just analytics, it's borderline common sense, is to hand out the 3-year contract to Bobby Wagner, who's 32 years old, and go, oh yeah, 34-year-old Bobby Wagner, this is going to work great. No, it's football. That's the ones that analytics, and you can point to it and say analytics. You can also point to it and say common sense and go, okay, no matter how good of shape we are keeping all of our bodies in, this isn't a quarterback whose whole goal is to not get tackled. This is a guy whose goal is to tackle. So I think we live in this black and white idea that he's over 30. Nah, he's gone. He's not here. He's not a part of it. It's analytics. It's that simple. No, I think it's a matter of opportunity cost more than it is analytics. And the Browns will tell you, I mean, hell, Paul DePodesta did 4 victory laps when they traded up for Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. And he comes on the Browns, and I'll never forget this. He comes on the Browns radio network and does an interview and goes, well, we just traded up in the draft. And not only did we trade up in the draft, we traded up linebacker. Get us, analytics be damned. Like, he was so proud of himself that he looked at the spreadsheet, dead in the numbers, and said, nah, I'm cool. We're going to go do this. And so I think we want to live in this ideal black and white world of over 30, he's not coming here. I think you will see guys who are over 30 come to this roster. But I think it'll all be on 1-year deals. And I think it'll be on 2-year deals. And I think it's going to be guys who are like the Ndamukong Suhs and the Lindale Joseph, who went to the Eagles at the end of last year, who are going to be the guys that they look at, who will come in here and help supplement all around.
What's the Browns' record going to be this year?
Oh, God, you're doing this to me already, aren't you? Oh, hell. All right. It is March 21st, okay? 7:33 p.m. Am I allowed to change this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but you got to come back on the show to do it.
I got to come back on and change it. Well, boys, you know how to get a hold of me. I think right now. All right. Let me go around the room. What we watched in the last 6 games of the season. Are any of you worried? Or are you just like rust? It's just rust. Hadn't played in 2 years, it's rust.
I think rust, very much so.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
Rust also. I think once he gets a preseason, a complete preseason in, and all this other crap that was going on last year is behind him, I think he's going to be okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Rust also, just because like he took a whole year off and then another 11 games off, and just not being able to fully practice with the team. I feel like it'll be a much different story this season.
All right. I'm in the middle. And I know that's like, oh yeah, well done, guy. Well done. Way to really pick a side and defend the hell out of it. There are things that I saw last year, especially from a guy who went through camp with the Browns, and especially from a guy who was in that building a month before, that were just pitiful, for lack of better terminology. That just looked like a quarterback who was just lost. And while I think some of that would get cleaned up, and like that Texans game, okay, that one is rust. I think we all can agree with that. It was one of the worst quarterback games we all ever watched. It made that Bruce Gradkowski game look tolerable. And as it went, you started seeing flashes. Okay, can those flashes turn into the Flash? It's the old Shaq quote that was awesome about Dwayne Wade, which is, "Hey guys, you're paying for Flash. You're not paying for flashes." And that's where I am with Deshaun Watson. You're paying for Flash. You're not playing for flashes. We saw flashes in the Washington game. That
Yeah,
second half, we saw the Flash.
The fact
Okay?
that he was off for 700 and whatever days, you got to expect something like that. He's not going to come back if anybody couldn't come back to a job after 700 days and know what the job was, even if you were there for 25 or 30 years, you're still going to have a little bit of rust there. I worked in the auto industry for 30 years, and the day that I came back after a 700 or 800 day layoff, and we had them, believe me, you don't go back to the job, and if you're going to get injured, the first 5 days that you're back on that job is the time you're going to get injured, or with the highest possibility. So that's why I'm discounting this. This last season was just to see what he had, and I think they're fairly impressed with him. What do you think?
I hope you're right. I really hope you're right. I'm worried. And maybe that's the wrong way to look at it. I can't just throw my hands up and say, Rust. I can't do it. There were so many bad habits that were in there, and missing of receivers, and not totally understanding what was taking place inside of an offense that you were studying an entire offseason mixed with in the building for an entire month beforehand. And I would write in stone that he had some kind of communication. I don't know that for a fact. I just know that this is the NFL. And I don't think you spend that much money and then honestly be in a situation where they're like, you can't talk to him. You won't talk to him. And the Browns go, oh, yeah, we won't have any contact with him whatsoever. Like,
Who got winning the division this year? If you had to put your money in Vegas.
Cincy. I think Cincy wins the division. I think if the Browns make it, they're going to be a wild card. If you're going to hammer me down to wins, I'm going to say 10-7, and I'm not going to feel good about it at all. And if I'm going to go either direction, it's probably going to go with less wins, and that's what nobody wants me to say. And that's just where I am right now. Now, that answer could easily change in June. An answer could easily change in August. It's just right now how this sits, and I know Jim Schwartz will come in and help the defense out. And I know you want to point to special teams and go Bubba Ventrone and all of that kind of stuff. And I think that all will make a difference and it'll clean out the edge. But guys, we know in the league, we know how the NFL operates. If your quarterback isn't coming, your defense needs to be all-time elite. And your special teams need to be flawless if you're going to make a run. And I want to see him on the field playing this season before I am committing to anything. And if I'm wrong, I'll eat it. I'm wrong that it's just rust. Just rust. Everything is rust. It's going to be fine.
I heard that some of the rumor mill is saying that the Browns will take Odell Beckham if the price is right. You want him back? I don't. If the price was right, do you think it'd be worth it?
No. I here's the reason. He's had two torn ACLs in the same knee in the last 2 years, right? 3 years? 3
Yep.
years.
3, I believe.
I'm not making that level of investment. The parallel of Odell Beckham Jr. is Cam Newton. I feel like they're very, very similar. And by that, I mean, I don't know if you can bring Cam Newton in to be a back quarterback in the NFL. I don't think it works. I think the personality is too big. And inside of that locker room, and you would sow dissent of guys going to Cam Newton because he's Cam Newton. And like, I'm not trying to trash Cam Newton. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks I've ever watched. He was a one-man wrecking crew for like 7 years and dragged the team to the Super Bowl. It's the reason why Cam Newton probably isn't in the league right now. And I don't know this for certain. It's just my guess. The reason is A, diminished skills, and B, people don't know if Cam can be a backup quarterback. I don't know if Odell Beckham Jr. can be a number 4 wide receiver on a team or a number 3 wide receiver on a team. I don't know if his ego can handle that. And by his ego, I mean, I don't know if the media influence that takes place of Odell Beckham Jr. would put him in a position and he would be able to handle that. Because the number one question Odell would get from the media is, hey, you only got like 10 catches on the year so far. What do you think of that? Well, I'm in the offense. I'm doing what I can do, all that kind of stuff. I'm flow of offense. We're figuring it out. We're getting better. Okay, but you only have 10 catches on the year. What do you think of that? Well, if I got the ball more, we might succeed more, which every wide receiver in the league would say.
Exactly.
But because it's Odell Beckham, it would lead everything. And every media member would turn around and go, hey, Deshaun Watson, you didn't get the ball to Odell Beckham quite enough. And Odell said that. And it's like, no, kind of, sort of, not really. And it would just follow that around. And it's the same thing that takes place in these locker rooms with Cam Newton, is the minute that you would struggle, they would go to Cam, and he would run into this problem all over again of, well, we're struggling a little bit on offense. I'm doing what I can to help. Do you think you can make a difference? Well, yeah, I think I could do that. Why? I was one of the best quarterbacks in football. It's the same thing when he came out and said, there's no way that there's 32 quarterbacks that are better than me, that Cam said earlier. And it's like, oh, Cam. At one point, the answer to that question was very much no. There are not 32 quarterbacks that are better than you. But right now in 2023, there are 32 quarterbacks that are better than you. And I'm sorry to say it.
The thing that scares me about Beckham, and it has since we took him the first time, he is so accident prone. I mean, even look at when he was with the Rams in the Super Bowl. You had him on he had 3 really good plays that game. The 4th play, he came down and wrecked his ACL again. The guy's a good player. I'll give him that. But damn, he's got to stay on the field. Why take something like that if he can't stay on the field? You're wasting a pick. You're wasting a position.
Agreed. And especially your 2 ACL tears in 3 years. And you can come out and say, the first one didn't take as well as it should have, and this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, okay, fine. But it tore a second time. And at what point, it's almost like it's like a pitcher and, Tommy John surgery is at a certain point. It's like, you've had this happen to you enough times that you can't help but look at it and go, all right, you're just kind of a ticking time bomb. And it sucks because, God, was he unbelievable. And he was such a fun presence and such a great player for a long time. And I hope he ends up somewhere. And I hope he ends up as the third or fourth receiver and has a long career. I just don't know if I'm making that investment for anything more than like 1 year for $4 million, $5 million bucks. And that's the end of it. Where I have no strings attached. I don't have a long-term commitment. I'm not waiting for the next injury to show up. I would not do Odell Beckham. I would rather trade for DeAndre Hopkins than get Odell Beckham.
Yeah,
Jr.
I would much rather that too. What do you think as far as I know they've made a bunch of defensive changes on the Browns. What do you think is next? What do you think we need to do next to make it better, to maybe actually make that 11 or 12 wins? What do you think they should do?
Probably the easiest answer to that question is Deshaun Watson returns to being a top 5 quarterback in football.
Yeah, we can hope that.
That's the easy answer. And honestly, that's what you're looking at. Because the only thing you can point to the defense, the only thing that's really there that you need is probably another linebacker. Somebody to go next to Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who could cover a little bit better, maybe a little bit more of a tackler in the run game than JOK is. Cover some of the mistakes. Outside of that, your corners are set. I mean, it's one of the best cornerback groups in the league. Juan Thornhill is a great pickup for this team.
Yeah,
Grant Delpit will be fine there.
I was wondering what you thought about him. I saw that this afternoon, that they picked him up and actually signed him.
I think it's a great move. I mean, they needed a safety who could definitely be a bit of a ball hawk in the backfield and could do, a couple and could cover in a pinch if needed. And Thornhill can do that. And I think it's a really good move for them. That was a smart pickup on their part, is to go get that guy. And I think he'll be really good for them. I mean, Steve Spagnuolo loved the guy forever because he could do so many different things with him. It was one of his favorite parts. He's a bit of a thumper. We could drop him into coverage. We could send him on a blitz. We could put him in a corner spot. Like, if a guy like Spags hangs on to a guy, Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator of the Chiefs, there's some level of talent there that you can exploit. And I think Jim Schwartz will want to do that same thing of, you can kind of bring a little pressure with him and you can shore up that back end with Juan Thornhill as well. So I was a big fan of that move. The story of the 2023 Cleveland Browns is, how far can Deshaun Watson take you? What does he look like? What does this offense look like with him having a year under his belt without any hiccups and a year and even more time removed from being off? That's it. We can nitpick all through there. Sure. Would you love to get another defensive end at the same caliber as Myles Garrett? Sure. We all would. You would love to be able to go find your way to some kind of Aaron Donald. Like, yes, that would be outstanding. That would be an upgrade. But the way this team is laid out, guys, that's it. It's 4. It all falls on the shoulders of 4. And everything else is window dressing. If he comes out and looks the way that he did in the last 6 games of that season, unless you are going to go get the Buccaneer defense that had Warren Sapp and Derek Brooks and all of those guys on it, it's not going to matter. It all comes down to the quarterback position with this team, as it has for 30 years. It all comes back to the quarterback position. And I hope he knows that, and I hope he's feeling that weight on his shoulders, and it's motivating him all off season long to knock out every last bit of that rust and freaking roll week 1.
Do you see Demetric Felton ever developing into a receiver? Because I did see today that he is working with receivers coach, or a personal receivers coach named David Robinson. Do you ever see him developing into a possible slot receiver?
I think he could be a really good gadget player if they can figure out how to use him as a gadget player. The problem you're going to run into in when it comes to Demetric Felton is he'd have to be a slot receiver, but if he is a slot receiver, you would have to pull off, if you're an 11 personnel, one tight end, one running back, you would have to look at either Donovan Peoples-Jones or probably David Bell right now and say, all right, you're off the field for Demetric Felton. He would have to be a gadget player, almost would fall into the Kareem Hunt thing. Almost would have to be into that Kareem Hunt role for it to really work. I think he can. I think the talent is there. I think he's fast enough. I think he can catch the ball well enough. The question is he a tell for Kevin Stefanski's offense if he's on the field? If Demetric Felton is out there, does every linebacker, play caller, all of that stuff look around and immediately go, what I think he's like 24 or something. Let's say he's 24. I'm horrible with numbers, by the way, so I just apologize now if he's not.
25.
But are they all looking around and going 24, 24, 24, immediately knowing what that means is they're in a passing situation and in a passing down? Because that's the kind of stuff that holds a guy like that back, is if he becomes a tell for your offense. I think he can be good. I mean, we've seen enough of it. We've seen him enough as a scat bat. We've seen him enough, get the ball in space on a screen and roll and run. So I think it's there. It's just, can he do all the little things in between there to not be a tell for the offense? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the last 2 seasons for the Browns being pretty underwhelming seasons, what's the over-under win total as to whether Stefanski will or won't get fired?
Oh, that's a good question.
Jimmy Haslam has been incredibly patient, which is something that I never thought I would say. I kind of thought he was going to perpetually just be, the guy with his hand on the trigger, just immediately like, all right, you're out. Next, get the next one. All right, he's fired. Get the next one too. Get the next guy who's competent in here. Can him, and can him for even thinking that this guy should stay. I thought that was the direction that they were going. But since they have brought in Andrew Berry and that whole group, he has become very patient. And so the record I think we're looking at, boys, it might be make the playoffs. I mean, it might be that. Just plain and simple, you make the playoffs and we're set.
So roughly,
it might just fall to there because right now they have overhauled everything around Stefanski outside of Stefanski's offense, which Stefanski's offense was really good. Under Jacoby Brissett, I think according to Football Outsiders DVOA, it was a top 10 offense in football with Jacoby Brissett back there. PFF, same thing. They were scoring points. They were moving the ball. Yes, can we question some of the Nick Chubb stuff of when he gets the ball and all that stuff? Yes, absolutely. But that's, in the same way that we all question Terry Francona for bringing in Brian Shaw. In the same way that we all question J.B. Bickerstaff for not playing guy X. It's that kind of stuff when it comes down to it. I think it's not make the playoffs. If they don't make the playoffs, I have a feeling that it's kaboom. And the problem that I have with them deciding that it's now kaboom is, okay, who are you bringing in? Because this can't just be the old-fashioned, we have to fire the coach knee-jerk reaction. If you've got a list, it better be a short one. And I wonder as well, guys, how connected are all of them? If Stefanski gets fired, does Barry get fired? And if Barry gets fired, does DePodesta get fired? And if it goes all the way up the ladder? Because this was DePodesta's guy. And I'm very pro analytics. I don't see a problem with it. I think there is a marriage that needs to take place when it comes to analytics and old school football, but I know analytics are based off of old school football. There's a reason why we got these numbers from somewhere. We didn't just pull them out of the sky. So I wonder how far up it would go if this comes crashing down, or if this is the new Jimmy Haslam and he's just like, nope, I have made this commitment. These are my guys. I wanted Andrew Berry. Here he is. I wanted Paul DePodesta. Here he is. I wanted Kevin Stefanski. Here he is.
Let me give you.
They've tinkered where they've needed to.
Let me give you a thought here.
Of course.
Haslam used to own part of the Steelers. He has
Correct.
seen the dynasties over there. Could he be trying to fashion this after that?
I think every team wants to fashion it after the Steelers.
You know, well,
I know that sounds really stupid.
Why you've got a coach. This Stefanski's probably, as I've seen the coaching staffs or the coaching like that, he's probably one of the better ones we've had since the early days of the new Browns. What was it, Bruce or that one coach that took us to the playoffs? I can't think of his name.
Butch Davis.
Butch Davis, yeah. And Schottenheimer and stuff. I think Stefanski seems to be along the line, or about the level of a Bruce. I forgot his damn name again.
Butch Davis.
Butch Davis, or somebody similar to that, you know. And if that's the case, he's going to have a lot more patience. I mean, look at as far as the Pittsburgh coach, Tomlinson should have been gone a couple of years ago. And they keep hanging with him, and he keeps working with them. But, you know, how much further is that going to go? You got to wonder. And you also have to wonder if shifting the coaching staffs around and not doing the head coach, that could give him a little bit more leeway, I'm thinking. I want to see a dynasty here. I want to see the Browns. I want to see the Browns win. I want to see them get into the Super Bowl, and I want to see them win it. Will that happen before I'm gone? God only knows. But you know, my hope is there, and I got a lot of hope for Stefanski. If they fire him quick like that, you know, it'll be the same old Browns, and they know that's what everybody's going to say.
Well, so the difference with it being the quote-unquote same old Browns is that they gave him longer than the Browns have been known to give, and especially the Browns under Jimmy Haslam. I mean, what? Freddie Kitchens was here for a year, right? It was a year. They held on to Hugh Jackson for too long. They sat through Hugh Jackson through 131-1 before they decided to move on from him. Before that, they were canning coaches on a yearly basis and settling for their sixth choice. Now, Mike Pettin wasn't exactly choice one. Rob Chudzinski, not exactly choice one.
Yeah, that's true.
And they'll admit that. And this time they went out and this was their guy. This was choice one, was Kevin Stefanski. And so they're giving him time and they're giving him rope, and for good reason. His offense works. They wanted to hire an offensive play calling coach because they wanted to not have anybody steal their offense. They didn't want to be the Rams, where anybody who ever had lunch with Sean McVay is coaching offense in the NFL. They didn't want that. They wanted to have their guy. And so that's what they did. They went and got their guy. And this was the one who was analytically forward thinking. This is the guy who, and especially even for, you want to say, an analytic forward thinking team, he runs the ball almost as much as any player in the league, any team in the league. And so I think they're going to be more pass happy this year. I think you're going to see that part of it come in. Why? That fits Deshaun Watson. Same thing with the quarterback run game. You're going to see more of that. Why? It fits Deshaun Watson. There's a reason why that Kevin Stefanski went out and hired the offensive coordinator of UCLA under Chip Kelly. One of the best quarterback run games we've ever seen. One of the best pistol offenses we've ever seen that works really well at getting guys moving. And so Kevin Stefanski is evolving as well. And I think that's the other side that the Browns are witnessing when it comes to Stefanski, is that he's evolving. It's not just square peg, round hole. This is what we do. This is Browns football. Boom, 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 boom. It's not that. It's this is what my talent is. This is what the league is. How do we evolve? The Browns ran 13 personnel, one running back, three tight ends more than anybody else on the face of the earth with Baker Mayfield. Why? Because Baker wanted everything easy to be seen. He wanted the big bodies in the tight end, and they wanted to do that. They brought in Jacoby Brissett. They brought in a different quarterback. Guess what happened? The three tight end sets went out the window. They became an 11 personnel team. They ran it about on average as everybody else. A little bit of 12 personnel in there as well. They backed off some of it. Not all of it, but there was an evolution. You started seeing the quarterback run game take place. Stefanski never ran that with anybody he had before. Now, granted, are you really going to run that with Case Keenum? Are you really going to run that with Kirk Cousins? No, probably not. Not the guys you want to run a quarterback option with. So he's evolving. And I think that's the other part of this that people are forgetting. And if he continues to evolve as this goes, it's not like it makes it so that you think that the next evolution might be the right one. And these guys are all connected. And that's the part of this that's forgotten. I very much wonder if they hit the eject button, if it doesn't on Stefanski, if everybody else stays, or if they hit the eject button on Stefanski and the whole kit and caboodle goes and they start from scratch. But I'll tell you, man, they've had this much rope. I can't see them having a quick trigger finger. I wonder, even if it gets ugly during the regular season, I wonder if they don't fire him. This is their guys. It's their guys.
Going to the business side a little bit, what do you think of the idea of a new stadium? And also, can you explain a little on, I know a couple of weeks ago you and Daryl Ryder were talking about how Minnesota funded their stadium. Can you kind of explain that? And
Sure. I will do what I can. All right. Am I for a new stadium? Absolutely. If you're going to do it though, and if they're going to do it and build a new stadium, I want a dome. I want it to be I want the football stadium dome. I don't care if you want to go retractable roof. Okay, fine, sure. If you want it, you could put an ordinance in that says the Browns have to play with the roof open. Fine. I want the megalopolis. I want the gargantuan thing so that Taylor Swift can come to Cleveland and we can sell out boatloads of tickets for Taylor Swift. And then we can bring in WrestleMania. And then we can bring in the NCAA tournament. And then we can bring in the band competitions and the gymnastics competitions and the Big Ten tuba competition. You know, I want all of the stuff. Like nothing is more fascinating than if you go to Lucas Oil Stadium and look up the events that are taking place there, you'll laugh. Because it's not just like, oh yes, this is going to be concerts, this is going to be motocross, and this is going to be the home of the Colts. They have a board game convention showing up there. They're in the middle of having I think it's in the middle right now, of having the conference for first responders taking place inside of there, where first responders can show up and learn the latest on technology and you know, all the different things that they can use to help people live longer and get it and all that stuff. There's so many things that come with having this megapolis if you know how to use it. And I trust David Gilbert, I should say, and the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission to figure that out, to bring in the, you know, dodgeball competitions and to bring in all of the little stuff that take place in between so that you can fund this thing. And so that's where I am. I would get it off of the lake. And if we are living in Menningen land and I'm playing Sim City right now and I can place right where I want to put the stadium without question and without accidentally hitting the natural disaster button, which I may or may not have done once or twice when I was a kid, I would steamroll and bulldoze Steelyard Commons and I would put it right there. And the reason being is all the major highways are right in that area. Yes, you would probably have to do a little bit of expansion. You'd have to work with it a little bit, but your intersections and everything are all right there. You could build your megapolis right there. The Browns can own all of the parking around it, and then that way, that's another revenue stream that's going into their pockets. You could probably build your village in that general area as well, because that's what everybody wants now, is they want their football village where you have all of your bars and your restaurants and all of that kind of stuff for game day and then in between. You've got Tremont right there as well. The land is cheap enough to do it, and you get the smokestacks in the background, which is very, very clean. So that's if Dan were playing SimCity in Cleveland and building a stadium, that's what I would do. So to your Minnesota point of this. So the way that Minnesota funded this thing is fascinating. They decided to come up with the idea of selling pull tabs. And so it's big thing in the Midwest, Wisconsin, Michigan, that stuff. I'm shocked we don't have them in Cleveland. I bet they're coming. Is you basically go $5, $10, 20, whatever, in a bar. You get a whole bunch of pull tabs and you open them up. And inside of there is a design. It is two symbols. And if the two symbols match up right, you win $5 or you win $10 or something along those lines. And so you just do them in a bar. And like, when you're a kid, your parents would buy them for you and they hand you, go, here, this will give you something to do. And you open up all of them like this. And, maybe there's something in there. Well, what happened by selling these pull tabs inside of the bar is this 50-year lease that the stadium, that the public was paying for, they've almost paid that thing off because of these pull tabs. And that thing's like 20 years old. And so they're 30 years ahead of paying off this stadium, all because they dipped into the gambling money. And I think that's the way, if you want to build a new stadium and have it be publicly funded, I think that's your answer. Is you have to dip into the gambling money. And you have to go, all right, you're betting on this. I want, and again, picking a number out of the sky. I want 5% or 10% of the gambling money. To put that in perspective, guys, in the state of Ohio, $1 billion was bet on the Super Bowl. So right there, if you said 10%, which you'd never get, but for the sake of easy math, let's do it. 10 mil? You'd take that.
Yep.
I mean, actually, crap, 100 mil. I mean, you'd take that in a second. $1 billion was spent on gambling in the first month since it became legal in Ohio.
I remember back when the syntax and everything was put in place for the current stadium. That was only 22, 23 years ago, and it was supposed to be for 20 years. I think that's probably just about paid off. The what they're talking now, I've heard that there's some land they're looking at out here in Independence. If they were to do that, you'd think there'd be a kind of a gambling or a little bit of a war between the two because of the loss of revenue for one place and taking it to the other. You got to wonder how much that would get into it. I love the idea of doing it through the gambling stuff, though. The gambling.
Yes. I mean, it's a brand new revenue stream that is currently unaccounted for. Now, some of it is, of course, going to schools, and we want it to continue to go to schools because learning is good. And if we learn better, probably people like me would have less of a hard time trying to figure out what 10% of $1 billion is and making a fool of myself. So, we should do some of it to the schools, of course, but this is a brand new revenue stream, and a chunk of it is coming from these sporting venues to begin with. So you can see where the logic kind of kicks in. It just makes too much sense to go into the gambling money and go, hey, if you're gambling inside of, let's say Cuyahoga, Lorain, Medina County. I'm picking those three out of the sky. We could probably go up to Ashtabula if we so desire. You could probably put Huron in there, wherever people are coming from. If you are gambling inside of those, 10% of your bet is going to and I'll let smarter people than me figure out how that goes with DraftKings and FanDuel and Betway and all that good stuff. So this seems like the easiest way to do it because we know I want to live in a world where billionaires pay for their own buildings. I don't like publicly funding these things and then having to pay to get inside of them. That's just not reality. And it sucks that it's not reality, but it's not reality. So they've got to make this work. And I wonder, gentlemen, I don't know if they're going to do that. I mean, on that show, Daryl Ryder basically laid this out. As he said, and this is for the sake of simple math, because Lord knows I don't math. It's $1 billion to build a new stadium without a roof. It's $2 billion to put a dome on it. It's $3 billion to build the retractable megapolis. I think that's what it was. Or it might have been $1 billion to renovate, $2 billion. That's it. It's $1 billion to renovate. It's $2 billion to build a new open air stadium because that's what the Bills are paying, and it's $3 billion if you want the dome.
You might as well just.
And I just think if you're gonna go in and you're gonna do this and you're gonna do it right, build the damn dome. And I don't care. Again, you can pay the extra and make it the retractable roof. Can we put to bed as well this whole thing of, the elements are the home field advantage of the Cleveland Browns? Can that crap just get put to bed?
Well, between
the
that,
whole team is from the SEC. It's not like they magically come to Cleveland, drink the water, and go, hey, cold doesn't bug me anymore. This is great.
it's the same thing as playing on natural grass. On natural grass, your players don't get hurt as much. Yeah, right.
Well, that actually is true. There's a reason. So the big thing that's running into in the U.S., and I swear we'll get back to the Browns. The U.S. is running into this right now with the World Cup bid. Is SoFi Stadium has turf in it right now, and FIFA will not play on turf because of the injuries that take place to the soccer players and to the top tier. So like the English Premier League, La Liga in Spain, Serie A in Italy, they will not play on turf. It has to be natural grass because all of their research has shown that they tear ACLs and ligaments and all of that kind of stuff far more on turf than they do on natural grass. It's the same reason why like JC Treader is trying really hard to get the NFL to all go to natural grass. Like that part of it, I buy and believe 100% because we've got the research to back that up. This whole like, oh yes, it's -4 and snowing with 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts on the lakefront. That's our advantage because we're used to it. Your wide receiver's from Florida. Your quarterback is from Georgia. Your running back is from Georgia. These people aren't from here. And even if they were from here, like, you're not doing this. You're not going to be any good in this stuff. You have found one kicker in 23 years who can kick in that stadium. One.
Yep.
Everybody else is lost. All right, I'm done. I'm off my high horse. I apologize.
For those of you just tuning in, we are talking to Dan Menningen from 92.3 The Fan. Quickly on different topic, have you watched the XFL at all?
No.
Okay.
That was simple and sweet. We love that. You've been down to Canton yet?
I apologize. I will say this. I've checked in couple of different times on the Seattle Sea Dragons because my buddy Randy Mueller is their general manager. And so I've checked in a couple different times to see what's going on with them. I have watched probably 5 minutes of it. And the entire time I went, this is fine, but I don't need football right now. And that's how I feel the same exact way when it comes to the AAF. And that could easily, or the USFL, sorry. I feel the same way with that they're advertising the hell out of. I don't need football in the spring. I just don't. I've got baseball. I've got basketball. I've got golf. There's so many sports that are going on. I don't need a second-tier football league. Football's perfect in the fall. It's 17 Sundays. maybe an occasional Thursday. They're events. They're great. They're fun. I don't need a second-tier football league. I've got college. That's a better second-tier football league than what you're going to get out of here. And especially with NIL and all of that kind of stuff on top of it, they're now being compensated and fairly compensated for it. Awesome. They should be, by the way. I don't need it. And I might be, and guys, I might be the weirdo on that one, and I'm willing to accept that fact. I haven't watched it. I haven't cared. I didn't care the first time when it was the Alliance. It's cool, good. I hope a lot of you get jobs in the NFL and can capitalize on this. I just would rather, I'd rather watch the NBA playoffs. I'd rather watch the NCAA tournament. I'd rather watch the World Baseball Classic. I'd rather check in on the baseball season. I would rather keep an eye on the golf tournaments that are going on and get excited for the majors.
Okay. Let's talk basketball. Nick, I know you had a question.
Oh, for basketball, yeah. I was just going to ask, do you, well, for one, of every person's $1 million question is, do you think the Lakers will make the playoffs? How far will they go? And right now, if you had to put your money on one team to win a championship, who would you pick?
Okay. Well, the Lakers make the playoffs. I think they end up getting in the play-in tournament. I think they bring back LeBron to guarantee that that's the case. The minute they make the play-in tournament, how far will they go? I think they will be knocked out in probably the second round. I think Denver is better than them. I want to see Sacramento in the playoffs. I want to light the beam in the playoffs. I want to see what takes place there because they're scoring a mess load of points, and they're so much fun to watch. I think they could do it as well. I want to see the thing with the Western Conference is it's just there's so many wide open teams, and what Kevin Durant comes back. If it's 80% of Kevin Durant, then they're gonna win. Like the Suns are going to be really, really tough to beat. If it's more than 80% of Kevin Durant, watch out. Like the Western Conference is so jumbled together. I think they make it. I think the Lakers make it in the play-in tournament. I think they get out of the play-in tournament. I think they lose in the first round. Because they'll end up with either the first or the second seed. And I think that's going to be a rough go. Now, if it ends up being the Kings, they might get through it. So there's that answer. Who wins the title right now? I think it's Milwaukee. And it's just due to the fact I am not a Milwaukee Bucks fan. Growing up, I didn't grow up with basketball. I found it way later on in life. I'm actually like Steve Nash made me fall in love with basketball. So, and those Phoenix Suns teams and watching Sean Marion play positionless basketball and all that stuff made me fall in love with basketball. So I think the Bucks are the best team. I think the toughest out. At some point, James Harden has to be like mediocre in the playoffs, right? Like he can't just be awful all the time. He's got to be like mediocre, right? Maybe, kind of. I mean, Joel Embiid's probably winning the MVP this year, and he's been unbelievable. You just know how it goes. When they get into the playoffs, it's a lot tougher to get foul calls, and refs are looking for the flopping and all of that stuff, and it makes life hard on Harden when he likes to stick his rear end out and get guys to run across him and do all the James Harden things that get him to the line. And he's been an unbelievable passer for the Sixers as well. I think we are going to end up with Bucks Suns once again. I will take the Bucks in, we'll say 6.
The ironic thing, if the Bucks end up winning, guess who's going to be representing their ownership if they were to win at their championship ceremony?
That's a good point. Would he butt himself onto the stage? Would Jimmy Haslam hold the trophy? Would he be the one that is holding the trophy? Because he had a lot to do with it coming in midway through the season.
Yeah.
I don't know. He wants his family legacy to be owning all of these teams, and it makes a lot of sense. There's money in them. The question that I have is, okay, there used to be a boatload of money in here. Now what? If all these RSNs are going to go under, and these companies that want to throw $50 million to broadcast your games are going under, where's the money coming from? Is it the industry that it once was?
You bring that up. Is it do you think it's smart, and maybe I don't know if you'd feel comfortable answering this question, being you're in the broadcasting industry, but do you think it's smart for teams to start their own networks, like the Cavs and Guardians to start their own network, or even the Browns to get into it too? Even though I know they're on CBS or Fox or ESPN, but to start producing their own content on their
So,
own network.
so the Guardians tried, and it was called Sports Time Ohio,
Yes.
and they loved it so much that they sold it to Fox. Um, that has been brought up to me more times than I can count. I think I, my thought with this gentleman is the Guardians and the Cavs should come together, and they should go out to a little television network called WBNZ, Channel 55. The vast majority of us get it over our basic satellite, or not satellite, but our basic.
There is a problem with that. I'll let you finish.
What's the issue with it? No, because this is like my half baked idea that I'm trying to find somebody to debunk because it makes too much sense. So
No,
clearly,
I agree. But I did research.
okay,
You know who part owns that?
who?
Ernest Ainsley,
Okay,
Reverend from Cuyahoga Falls.
right.
So, and it's a nonprofit organization right now. I've
Okay,
done my
so-
research into that because I've
No.
been saying the same thing.
Yes, and it's just because it has so much bandwidth
Yeah.
that it just makes sense. And so my dream is that the Guardians and the Cavs come together and they buy one of the local TV stations with a really strong satellite, and they go, all right, we're putting all of these games over the air. And what we'll do is they would have to figure out the month of April. That would be the hardest thing for them to figure out is, okay, what do we do with the last couple Cavs regular season games as the Guardian season is starting? We would have to figure out an HD2 channel, who goes to what. That would be your biggest hiccup to find out. And then spend the rest of the time you have it, do a mix of local programming and reruns of Becker, or reruns of whatever show you want to pick. Put the Beverly Hillbillies on. I don't care. Just something to spend the time and sell commercials in between.
How about WUAB? They have
So
Channel
the
19.
problem, so the problem is with them is they're now a CW affiliate. So they actually have an affiliate that's in charge of it. So that's their biggest hiccup is you'd have to. I don't know if the CW or what that looks like for the affiliate if they would.
CW is 55. 55 is CW.
I thought that was now 43.
No, 43 is in my network.
43 is mine. So maybe UAB is the answer. The only question I have is, does it have the bandwidth? But I think that's the perfect world answer we all want is, okay, well, how do we get the most amount of eyeballs to this? I don't know what it takes to run a television station, gentlemen. I have no idea. I wish I did. I could give you a better answer if I did. I don't know what goes into it. I don't know how many people you have to pay. I don't know how much it runs to produce all of these games. And if you can make that all up in advertising. My whole thought with it is, I know that it's a very simple thing of the more eyeballs you have on something, the more money you can charge for advertising. And the only thing that's out there that gets on-demand eyeballs at any given time is live sports. And award shows as well. That's it. If you go through the most watched events that everybody has, or the most watched events in TV, every time they are live sports or award shows. So that's how you get the most amount of eyeballs. And with eyeballs comes ad revenue. The question is do these teams want to do all that stuff in-house, or would they rather just outsource it? And so far, the answer we've ran into is they want to outsource it. And while that's awesome, because if Diamond Sports Group goes under, we all get to watch these for free on MLB.com. Or for, I think it would end up being like $80 for the entire year for everybody to watch it. Great score, no blackouts. Awesome. It's what we all want. But that amount of money going in is not the same as what they were getting under the cable agreements. And so that's where things start to get shaky. And so I'm keeping an eye on. So the MLS, and I'll keep this short because I know you guys probably want to wrap this up because I've been rambling for too damn long. The MLS took all of their rights and they sold it to Apple TV. And so right now for X amount of dollars, I can't remember what it is, they have all of them there. You just log in. There's no blackouts. There's no restrictions. None of that stuff. Just log on in and there's all the games for the MLS. You sit there and watch every single one of them. I wonder if Major League Baseball is looking at that and going, all right, let's take all of these RSNs and all of these games and let's send it to Amazon. And Amazon will give us, $100 million. Split that up 30 ways. Done. Problem solved. Outside of maybe the Yankees, the Cubs, everybody who owns their own sports network and right. Nesson, same thing there. And I wonder if that's where all of this ends up. Is we just go, all right, 100 mil, split that 30 ways, done. Problem solved.
So my reasoning behind the Browns getting involved in a RSN is they have a lot of TV experience, production experience between J.W. Johnson and D. Haslam. And they've won, just producing the Brown stuff, they've won like 5-6 Emmy Awards. So they can produce high-level programming. I was kind of disappointed to see that they're building the Browns off TV, turning it into a YouTube series called Unleashed. But that's a sidebar. So I think, getting them and starting the Cavs and Guardians, starting their own network and getting the Haslams involved somehow, have them be a minority stake in it, I think would be a good idea. That's kind of why I say the Browns should get involved, because obviously they're not going to be airing Browns games.
I was going to say, if you don't have the Browns product, I wonder how much pull the Browns stuff has. Like, I wonder how Building the Browns did. What was that on? That was on Valley Sports Ohio, wasn't it?
No.
They put Building the Browns on?
They did reruns. It was on WEWS.
WEWS, that's it. So they had it on over-the-air television,
Mm-hmm.
which is... Sorry, boys, there's a spider in front of me that distracted me. So they were showing reruns there. They had it initially on over-the-air television so that everybody can see it. Mm-hmm. Because they're smart and the NFL is smart. The best thing that the NFL has going for it is the fact that all of their games, except for Thursday Night Package and Monday Night Football, are all over the air. And they want to keep it that way. And so they're never going to change it. They're never going to alter that, guys. It's always going to be right there. And it's always going to be on over-the-air television. So the idea of a Browns RSN, throw that out the window. A, they get billions to broadcast their games on it. And B, they get millions of eyeballs to find themselves to it. Even the crappiest NFL game. So the games themselves are always going to be there. Building the Browns, maybe you can work something out where they buy ad time or they buy programming time on your network you want to do for the Cavs and the Guards. That's going to be your best bet. I can't see the Haslams funding a TV network for two other sports in town that they don't own.
But also, the Haslam Sports Group owns MLS. I know they bought, or Apple owns them, but that's probably not going to go well because not everybody has Apple TV, and soccer fans aren't just going to go out and buy Apple TV just to watch MLS.
Well, so what's happened thus far, and again, we're still getting the numbers. It's very, very early in the season. I wonder how many people went and got Apple TV Plus. Like, I really do. And I mean, it's just something you download it on your, smart TVs or whatever else like that. The other thing, too, is MLS fans definitely skew younger. And younger people are more willing to go to streaming apps to watch things than older people are. Baseball skews older, as we have all ran into with all of our parents and grandparents picking up the phone and going, how come I can't find the game? And they're going, Well, as it's on Apple TV. What the hell's an Apple TV? Do I have an Apple TV? I don't even think I have apples. The last time I bought them, they spoiled because your dad didn't eat them. Like that's where you would go with all of this. And so they need to figure that out more than anything, especially with baseball, because if you're going to put all this stuff on streaming with a viewer base that's older, you're going to have to make this as easy as humanly possible for people to find your game. Because if you don't, you're done for. Because, everybody's used to, okay, I take the remote, I turn the TV on, I go to channel X, boom, ball game's on. You're having to reprogram people's brains. And so I want to see what it looks like for the MLS and how many people are paying for the package to watch the Columbus Crew and to watch everybody else in between there, because I think that'll be the indicator. Now it'll be a smaller scale. I mean, put it this way, Eric, this stuff works. And I'll give you the perfect example. The smartest thing that ESPN ever did was start ESPN Plus. And the smartest thing ESPN Plus ever did was they went, all right, we're going to go buy every single niche sport that we can find. We're going to go get cricket. We're going to go get college lacrosse. We're going to get swimming and diving. We're going to get gymnastics. We're going to get rugby. We'll get a couple soccer stadiums. We'll get all of this stuff. And if we have enough niche people paying to watch, then we'll make money. And that's what they've figured out is we have enough niche sports and enough niche sports fans that they'll buy into this and we'll make money. And so that's what they would have to figure out how to do is can we take MLB and sell it to a streaming network or keep it in-house? And are there enough people to keep that up and running? Or do we need to sell this off to get the amount of eyeballs if Netflix decides that they want to get into sports? Well, then they'll pay for it. And there's something else that people are paying for in the meantime.
As far as marketing moves, let me interject something here. First off, I'm a Mandalorian fan.
Same here. I'm 2 episodes behind.
I'm only one. The one that dropped. Oh, it hasn't dropped yet. It drops tomorrow. I've watched all 3 episodes of the third one. Okay. That being said, I was paying $10 a month for Disney, and I thought all of a sudden they came out with this marketing plan for History of the World Part 2. Love Mel Brooks. That's my guy.
As do I.
So I thought, well, I'll take and see if I can get Hulu in a package. So I start poking around on a computer, and sure enough, I turn up this Hulu package. Hulu, Disney, and guess what? ESPN Plus. I'm like,
exactly.
Whoa, yeah, that's a good marketing thing there. I've logged into the ESPN Plus a couple of times. I'm not going to really watch it till it gets time for football, but for the most part, I watch everything else. I've been watching the Hulu stuff and everything. It's marketing, and I'm contradictory to your point there, Dan, because I'm an older guy. I'll be 70 in 2 more years or a year and a half, and for me, I'm as good on a smart TV as any younger kid, but I'm just too damn lazy to look for this stuff.
That's awesome, man. First and foremost, because I'll out my folks. They're kind of close to where you are in age, Pat, and I have to walk, especially my mother. I have to write out instructions for her to find Handmaid's Tale. Get the little turn on the TV, hit this button, get the little remote. Like I had to do that at one point so that she could get it. She's better now, but when we first started, that's where we were.
Yeah,
and so everybody's at different levels when it comes to all this different stuff. Like I'm in the basement here where it takes 3 remotes to turn the TV on because I've got all sorts of different stuff hooked up to the TV.
I can relate to
the
that.
The one upstairs that my fiance watches, I have programmed to one very small remote that has 10 buttons on it. So then that way, whatever she wants, one of the 10 buttons. It all falls to different levels when it comes to people. And that package is fantastic, but it's actually funny because I have a feeling that's where all of this stuff is going to go. Is we're going to be looking around going, oh my God, I'm paying X amount for this. I'm paying for that. I'm paying for this. Damn, I wish somebody would put this all together in a package and charge me a little bit less so I could have it. Oh crap, now I have cable.
Yep, yep. I think
But
I'd like to see Paramount added to the bunch, but they're the most expensive streaming out there. But they got a lot of stuff I'd probably
I mean,
watch.
YouTube just went up. I know people who have YouTube. They were telling me it went up from 45 a month to 75,
Holy crap.
80.
Well, yeah, I mean, the amount of money, you saw the amount of money that they were handing out to get the Sunday ticket.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, crap, I think it was close to $1 billion. It might even be higher than that for them to get the Sunday ticket away from DirecTV.
Oh yeah, I forgot they got the Sunday ticket. That's
Mhm.
probably a good reason why it's went up.
Exactly. You know, that money's got to come from somewhere. I mean, and that's what all this stuff comes from. This money's got to come from somewhere. So this all is evolving, and I don't know what the future holds in all of it, because this is all uncharted territory. And if you've got RSNs, live TV providers coming out and going, we're not making any money out of this because everybody's cutting the cable. Boys, I have no idea. I think the route that this goes, at least for the next couple of years, is that like MLB owns their own, NBA owns their own. We're gonna pony up, pay, we'll say $80, just because it seems to be the going rate for the stuff. It'll be $80 for you to watch the Cards. It'll be $80 for you to watch the Cavs. And by the way, you'll get everything else with it.
Oh,
And
you're saying a direct to consumer type thing?
I think that's right where it's going, at least for a short period of time, that we're just going to have all this stuff in-house.
I did read something a couple of days ago that it's just MLB that doesn't want to cooperate. The NBA and NHL are trying to work something out with Diamond to be able to keep Bally's afloat, but MLB is like, no, we're not gonna cut deals with you that we're not making a good amount of money. So
So I think some of that has to do with the fact that it's the end of the season. You know, the fact that, I mean, what? Cavs got 10 games left, 11 games left.
mhm.
That's about on average where everybody is. NHL,
Okay.
I think it's kind of the same idea. So I think because it's the end of the season, they're like, look, let's just float water. Let's tread water until we're done. Let's get into the off season. We'll figure out where we're going from here. The NBA has been the league that's on the cutting edge of all of this stuff. You know, they've been ahead of the curve on a lot of things. They were the first one that took oh crap. Was it Center Court? Is that what it was called? I don't remember. The NBA package digital. They were the first one who decided to do that.
Are you
And
talking
so-
League Pass?
League Pass. Thank you. They were the first ones who decided to do that. So I wonder where all of this goes. I wonder if they just take it all digital. I think, Eric, they're trying to tread water to the end of the season, because again, I might be wrong. Billionaires don't like it when you take money out of their pockets. And right now, Bally's is trying to take money out of billionaires' pockets. And I shouldn't say Bally's. I take that back. Diamond Sports Group is trying to take money out of billionaires' pockets.
Well, I mean, we could go as far as Sinclair because they're the one who actually owns.
Diamond Sports Group.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, it goes as far as Sinclair, which, in essence, is actually a lot of these. A lot of the markets actually have Sinclair-owned stations, and
Oh, absolutely.
so those teams are just going to go to that Sinclair-owned station. And unfortunately, Sinclair sold off our affiliate a couple of years ago because they owned 8 for a short time.
Yeah, I know they want to. I know Major League Baseball, because I was reading it. I think it was out of Evan Drellick's piece out of The Athletic.
Mhm.
They want to keep the cable feed afloat, at least for the year. Like it for anybody who's listening, it's not like they're going to declare bankruptcy, and they have declared bankruptcy, but it's not like all of a sudden the lights are just going to get shut off and you're going to lose Great Lakes and Valley Sports Ohio. Like it's not like it's just going to be boom, done, switch flip, no mas. They're going to keep those feeds going, and they're going to keep all of that stuff going. It's just at least until probably for the rest of the season is what it's going to look like, at least until they can figure out what's going to come next. And I think they're going to just take the feed as well now that they're not being paid for it. And I think they're just going to take that feed and put it on a streaming service on top of it. And I think that's the direction it goes. Now, how long that goes is a really good question. But I think at least for this season, it sounds like Major League Baseball is going to do what they can because all the NBC sports stations are in the same boat. I mean, you can look at the White Sox network, NBC Sports Chicago. They're going to run into the same problem because they're late on a payment and they want to get out of the RSN business. So
does AT&T.
Exactly. Sportsnet and all those for Pittsburgh and all that stuff. So those cable feeds are all going to still exist. And I think that's the way Major League Baseball is going to go. But where it goes after that is a really good question.
And on that happy note, Dan, I do appreciate you coming in, man. It's been an interesting couple hours. We appreciate you taking the time for us. And I'm going to we need to wrap this up, I think, so that I can get to bed eventually. I got about another hour of production to do here. Well, once we get everything wrapped up here. Once again, thanks again for coming in. I'll turn it over to Nick if he's got anything to say. And we will hopefully talk to you again. You're always welcome here. You know that.
Appreciate that, guys. It was a blast as always.
Thanks for joining us, Dan. With that,
well, wait, Nick, you got Nick here.
I'm all good,
give
man.
Him a shot.
I got everything out that I needed. It was a pleasure talking with everybody.
Nice talking to you as well, man. Good talking to you.
With that, as the saying goes, it's time to be like a hockey player and get the puck out of here.
Good morning! Good afternoon!